The dose makes the poison. As we progress through this, you'll see that if you've got food sensitivities, you don't even know. Your energy just comes down and you get used to that. Low testosterone and low energy. So right now, this is where we are on these 7 videos. The other video is linked below, and it was all about removing these chemicals from our body. Why? Well, as we explored in the previous video, very low dose can completely suppress dihydrotestosterone. Now, this is a second form of testosterone in your body. You don't want it suppressed. It has a 5 times higher binding affinity to the androgen receptor and a 10-fold higher potency. So a little bit goes a long way. And they've shown in clinical trials how to increase it by 53%. But you can go bald if your hair follicles are sensitive to dihydrotestosterone. So back over here, where we are now is this third video, which is the second in the unlock method to unlock your energy and your testosterone. So we're going to look at 2 things. 1, food sensitivities, and 2, genetics and how you can mimic elite genetics. Now, how I discovered this, Dr. Anthony J, PhD in hormones, he's also a genetic expert. So I'll walk you through and unpack that shortly. And as you can see here, the chemicals are a big problem. They're in your personal care products, they're in your clothes, the sheets that you sleep in. So these synthetic fibers, they're kind of toxic. So you need to start getting natural fibers, and I've got information about that. Fry pans, they're in your food, they're in the air, and they're kind of everywhere. So I've got a comprehensive elimination plan. I don't want your email, I don't want anything. If you can just like and share these videos if you find them helpful, that's all I ask. So that was the overview on the previous video about these man-made chemicals. And as you can see, they mimic estrogen, they cause inflammation and cortisol to go up, cause fertility issues and low sperm count, they cause man boobs, and they demasculinize the male fetus. So they're pretty nasty shit. So it kind of feels like you're in the Titanic. You know what we're told? As we age, men, our energy comes down, and so does our testosterone. And as we'll soon explore, that's not necessarily the case. You can be 50, 60 with high optimal testosterone, so you don't have to fucking sink like that ship. And when you get testosterone in the up position, it does all of these benefits. And one of the main things is that it really helps you get lean and muscular quite quickly. But for the brain, it makes effort feel good. And this comes from Andrew Huberman, professor of neuroscience at Stanford. But it lowers fear and anxiety, so you feel better. You want to get out there and fucking crush it as a man, as you should do. And we've been denied for a long time. As Dr. J said to me, in the 1940s, a man's average testosterone at my age, and I'm 51 in a few days, at 51 was over double what it is today. So clearly there's some shit going on we don't know about. And just so you know, this is what happens. These are the symptoms of low testosterone. This is my friend, Dr. Ken Berry, MD.
Mark, you know this, but many of the listeners may not know. There are millions of men around the world, millions who are either pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, and they have no idea. Literally do not know this, even though they're damaging. They're increasing their risk of erectile dysfunction, of heart attack, of stroke, of blindness, of every organ in their body shutting down and ceasing to function. But since their doctor says, well, you're relatively skinny, Mark, you've got a little belly pooch, but that's it. No big deal. We're not going to check any blood work on you. And you feel like shit. You got no energy. You got no get up and go. You're gaining weight. You feel like crap. But your doc says, well, you're skinny, therefore you're healthy, and they send you on your way. Every guy with any of these symptoms that we talk about, you need to go to your doctor and politely, respectfully demand those 5 tests, and then also ask for a.
So those 5 tests are in the very first video. It's linked below. It's when Dr. Ken Berry and myself had a discussion about this. So you can fix it if you haven't left it too late. Now, over here, we're going to talk about how much protein and when to put on muscle mass. And that's me. And one thing that I absolutely love being a 50-year-old man is I don't count calories. I eat to satiety. You can get to that place. So if that interests you, we're going to eventually show you how to do that. But we're going to talk about how muscle is put on, all the pathways that you need to activate. And we're going to just open up the fucking can of worms about low protein diet and low fat diet. As you can see on these studies here, low protein diet causes significant reductions in body weight, muscle mass, epidermis, seminal vesicle weight, and testosterone. But look at this, your testes, they scale down. And the second study here, men adhering to low-fat diets had lower serum testosterone. So we have to do things a bit differently if we want different results. And there's a lot of things, as we'll discuss in future videos, that shut off testosterone. Pain meds, one of them. You've got supplements. You know, it's a mess out there. And we'll also show you, well, not me, but coming from my mentor, Dr. J, how testosterone is made. 6 things need to happen to make testosterone. And, you know, it's not like these scientists aren't talking about the symptoms of low testosterone. As you can see on this research paper, sexual and non-sexual symptoms of testosterone deficiency can negatively affect the quality of your life, cause considerable general health concerns. So you could be unknowingly, as I was, living the low testosterone lifestyle, and you feel like shit. You feel like garbage. And we're also going to explore everything that takes all of your androgens. We're talking about DHEA, we're talking about the big T, and DHT, as we just discussed, all these androgens, and turns them into estrogen. 4 things. All right. And one thing that Dr. J and I have discussed is that everything that we put in and on our body goes through the androgen pathway tests. We want to make sure that we've got high optimal testosterone and plenty of energy to put on the muscle and to feel good. There's lots of things that are taking you out. Now, what we're going to do here right now is talk about genetics. Then I'm going to show you all about food sensitivities and take food sensitivities seriously. When we get to that part of this, it'll blow you away about how many potential Trojan horses are crushing your energy and your testosterone. One thing that I want to point out before we move on is that testosterone, as I learned, is a bit of a luxury for the body to make. As you can see here, when you're in energy deficit, you have significant reductions in testosterone production here. So in future videos, I think it's 2 videos out from now, I'll talk about how we can get it to that place, but also still drop the body fat and put on a bit of muscle at the same time. So the whole key concept is you can be doing everything that you think is right, but if we don't have an energy surplus there, our body's not going to have enough to make high optimal testosterone. So just to show you the genetic component of getting this right, I've got what I think of as pretty crap genetics. As you can see here, I don't do too well with saturated fats. I'm carbohydrate intolerant. I have pretty poor vitamin B absorption, and I need higher levels of choline, which is absolutely key. Now, we'll unpack this a bit as we progress. Now, this is what Dr. J explained to me, and that's my genetics again on the screen there. So Dr. J explained that, we've got 4 basic kinds of genetics. You've got people that just seem to kick ass in life, right? They get to a ripe old age and they've got energy, they do well, and they've got elite genetics. That's not me, and that mightn't be you. Then you've got people with great genetics, normally the Olympians. You see these legends. Then you've got people with average genetics, and You know, we're told this story by mainstream that our energy is supposed to come down as we age, along with testosterone. Well, as you'll soon see, that's not the case. So, average genetics, you start tapping out with energy and testosterone about 30 years of age to 40. But for me, it happened a lot earlier than that. That's why I consider myself with garbage genetics. So, how do we start fixing this problem? Well, just to show you how, we've got these on our genes, we've got SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphism. Some work fast, some work average, and some work slow. So let's just park that for a moment. Now, when it comes to stress, I make a lot of stress hormones very fast. When it comes to anxiety, I'm in the 98th percentile. So that's why I had panic attacks and performance anxiety in my late 20s and early 30s. And as far as fatigue goes, not supposed to have a lot of energy. I'm in the 79th percentile. Now, Dr. J revealed to me how we can slow down the stress pathway so I can make ideal levels of stress hormones. We can also speed up the fatigue pathway. And also testosterone. I've got a very slow testosterone production. So I've got to work pretty hard at bumping my testosterone up. Now, this could be you. And that's a great thing about this day and age. We can mimic elite genetics even if you've got garbage. So we can get to that place. Now, another thing that's key, and we'll talk about that on future videos, is that if you're really stressed out, more than likely you've got a bit of an enlarged amygdala. It's just a bit too big. But over 8 weeks, as you can see on this study here, you can shrink it down so you don't feel as stressed. And that's what these scientists are now showing. But what's also fascinating is the old hippocampus here. You can see here, this is the control here versus the people that went through the steps to fix this problem, right? And they had massive increases in the hippocampus, which is memory recall, memory consolidation. And the same is true down here for the temporal parietal junction. Massive increases where the control actually went backwards. And the temporal parietal junction, perspective taking, which is huge, empathy and compassion, which the world needs more of. So this is kind of how we think about it. Right now, I've classified everything that takes our energy out and screws up our hormones. I've classed them into 2 categories: heavy P2s, which need time to fix, then light P2s, which we can get rid of immediately when we know what they are. So an example here of a food sensitivity is some people are lectin sensitive. So they've got an increased risk for heart disease. So as you can see here, our genes and genetics, we kind of need to know what they are so we know what foods that we will thrive on at a deep hormonal level. So that's pretty key. And another thing here, this gentleman here that Dr. J went over, he's got a very slow pathway that creates BDNF. So you see this here, we can speed up these pathways. And we can also do things to increase BDNF. Now, BDNF is a miracle grow for your brain. So faster, sharper thoughts, better memory recall, better memory consolidation. So it's pretty key. Now, what I want to unpack here is my obesity genes. This is a conversation Dr. J and I had a little while ago, and when he was going over my genetics. And as you can see here, I've got 3 pluses here, which means I'm supposed to be fat. But as you've seen at the beginning of this, I'm kind of not, and I don't count calories. So let's just listen to this little conversation with me and Dr. J.
Shortly after 20, my FTO gene took over and I got fat.
Yeah. Yeah, those are powerful genes, those FTO. The BBC did a whole 1-hour documentary on that gene.
We didn't even talk about that, did we? Have we talked about that yet?
No, it's in there though, for sure.
Is that it there? Yeah. There we go. Look, so I've got a pretty impressive
the worst ones you can have.
So I've got the worst obesity genes that you can have.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you could have other ones on top of that, but have 3 pluses on these FTO genes is definitely stacked up against you. It basically means your fat cells want to store fat more than most people. You don't want to burn it as energy. You just want to store it.
Yeah. And considering the fact that these fake estrogens are stored in our fat cell and they promote fat growth, I mean, everything was stacked against me. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You don't want to.
Okay, so you can fix this, even if you got my crap genetics. So as you can see here, this is when I was struggling right here. I was struggling. But over here, when you know how to put it all together, it's not so hard. And I'm just about 51. So you can fix this. You can get to that place if you haven't left it too late, as Dr. Ken Berry said to me. But we've got to make sure we're eating the right foods, because a lot of the foods that we're eating, especially fast foods, are packed full of these chemicals, and they're estrogen-like. So they shut us down. They shut down testosterone production pretty damn quickly. And there's a lot of things that are going to really clamp your body, not you, your body's ability to make testosterone. You can take all the fancy supplements you want in the world, but until you fix your body, it's just not capable of producing high optimal levels. So one final thing before we go into food sensitivities is my son-in-law, Jesse, here. He was absolutely crushed, anxiety. He didn't have a lot of energy, and they didn't know what to do. And Dr. J, this is what he discovered about Jesse's genetics. Pay careful attention to this.
Tell people.
So I just want to record this to show Jesse how important it is. So this Dr. J, this is my son-in-law, and I just wanted to focus in. I know the rest of it, but I just want you to speak. Holy shit, look at those gut genes.
A lot of gut genes.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? I didn't even look over this one. I just did the report and sent it to you, but that's a lot.
Yeah. Vitamin D.
Jeez, you're gonna scare him.
He's got the testosterone gene.
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
Low testosterone, not too bad.
At least his estrogen's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thyroid, bit of an issue. Plant sterile. So Dr. J,
that's the big one.
Speak to this one, please.
Yeah. Right. Well, exactly. So even with a plus minus, this one's really, really important, because less than 1% of people have this gene, and it's basically your body doesn't clear plant cholesterol very well. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's familiar with human cholesterol, like LDL and HDL and IDL and VLDL, all these different forms of animal cholesterol. And by the way, cows have HDL and LDL and all this kind of cholesterol, and dogs and cats and mice and monkeys and all this. Like animals in general have animal cholesterol, but plants have a different type of cholesterol. It's called cytosterols.
Yep.
And his body does not clear plant cholesterol very well. And what that does is it plugs up your system. So it'll screw up your testosterone production, because testosterone is made from cholesterol, made from human cholesterol, LDL.
Yeah.
It's not made from plant cholesterol. It's made from the human animal cholesterol. And if your body's all plugged up with plant cholesterol, cytosterols, then it struggles to make testosterone. It struggles with all kinds of different functions, and ultimately it can damage your arteries too, because if you got all this plant cholesterol, it can clog up your arteries. It can react with oxygen, become oxidized, and damage arteries. So the important thing with this gene is, I call it the carnivore gene, because basically you want to mostly eat meat. And if you're craving plants once in a while, have some plants, but mostly eat animal products.
Yeah.
And remind me if does he have any dairy issues? Go to the top of the diet section for a second.
Go up. Yeah.
I just want to make sure you can do the dairy stuff too. Yeah, he's good at dairy. So eat the cheese, sour cream, butter, eggs, seafood, shrimp, all that kind of, and loads of red meat, turkey, like mostly animal products. Just live off animal products. If he's craving some broccoli once in a while.
Yeah, he's got the obesity gene, and he's also got the bad guts. So he's not absorbing the nutrients too well.
Exactly.
And he's kind of lean, but that's clearly what, one thing that's driving the reason that he's not, overweight is because he's not absorbing the nutrients from his foods.
He's got so many gut genes. Yeah, we see that. That's almost always with those 3 obesity genes, you see obesity, unless you see all kinds of gut issues.
And that's what he's got. Yeah.
And that's exactly what he's got.
Shit,
so he's going to have to focus.
That's some.
I would say no grains.
Yeah.
Again, like one of the best ways to heal your gut is just eat animal products, because his body, he's an animal, right? He's made of meat.
Yep.
So when he eats meat, the transition into his body is very smooth, very gentle. It's not harsh. It's not challenging. His body assimilates meat and animal products very well. Plants have a lot of weird stuff. They have weird cholesterol, like we talked about. They have weird fiber. They have weird proteins. They have weird sugars. Literally everything in plants is different than animals. So the process for his gut to deal with plants is much more challenging.
Yeah.
So he's real meat eater.
Yep, and the testosterone gene there. So he's got to eat meat, and basically what I eat. Meat. Yeah, I eat a lot of meat and a little bit of veg. That's me.
Right. Oh yeah.
All right. So as you can see, if you got this gene or other food sensitivity genes that I'll explore in a moment, then it doesn't matter what you do. You can take all the fancy supplements in the world to boost your testosterone, but it's all for naught. We're wasting our coin. We have to optimize the body first. And as you can see here, his genetics, really poor gut genetics. As Dr. J explained, he's really poor at absorbing the nutrients from foods. So that's why at this point in time, that he's not overweight, because he's got those obesity genes like I have. Now, luckily for me, I've got pretty good gut genetics, so I can put on fat really easily. Now, another big problem with gut genetics is what you see on screen there. What you mightn't know is we've got a lot of emulsifiers in our food. They act like detergent. So they're washing away the protective lining of your gut. Now, back in 2017, there was no safety concern for these emulsifiers. Now, ever since then, they've done more and more research. In 2019, as you can see here, it's going to damage the intestines and endoplasmic reticulum. So that's not good. So these emulsifiers in Western food are toxic. So they can be found in yogurt, all over the place. And don't forget about the chemicals, the estrogen-like chemicals in a lot of foods. So, it's a toxic world out there. And the final piece of the puzzle when it comes to genetics is there's a lot of supplements, as we learned from, the discussion that Huberman's put on his podcast there, like it can suppress dihydrotestosterone, but it can also, these supplements, in a dose-dependent manner, can cause a down-regulation in the androgen receptor. So your testosterone is not doing much at all because the receptor isn't being activated. So that's a big problem. Now, this research paper here is from the supplement quercetin. So the QRC here is from that research paper, which I've got linked there. And quercetin is going to downregulate the androgen receptor. So a lot of supplements, that's why everything that I put in and on my body goes through the androgen pathway test. So it's not just the androgen pathways, it's also the receptors. Are they affecting the receptors? Because if they're affecting the receptors, you can be on TRT, but the testosterone can't go into the muscle to build muscle. It can't go into your brain to lower fear and anxiety. So it's not exerting its powerful effects for you. So we've got to be very careful about what we put in and on our body. So this was another conversation Dr. J and I had. It was all about nightshades, more food sensitivity. And I won't play that video. Suffice to say that plants, they're great if your genetics are good with them. But if you're like me and my son-in-law, they're not so wonderful. How do you know? Well, if you've ever tried to go keto or even carnivore, or ketovore, and you're eating some vegetables that don't agree with you, this can be happening. It doesn't happen to everybody. But what we've got to start considering is that maybe these vegetables are screwing me up. You've got some kind of sensitivity to them. So the research is pretty clear on these plant chemicals, right? So plants have natural insecticides. They can slow down enzyme production. So enzymes are needed to make testosterone. Enzymes are needed to do a lot of amazing things in your body, and it can slow them down. So you can pause the screen and have a look at all of that. But suffice to say that, if you're not feeling it, if you're not charged up, you struggle, then more than likely you've got some kind of a sensitivity there somewhere. So one of the biggest sensitivities that I've discovered is the old gluten. So from wheat here, this comes from this book, an excellent book. And he speaks all about these food sensitivities, why my brain isn't working. So for me, I've got gluten sensitivity. So is Jesse. And this is what gluten sensitivity will do. So the biggest problem that a lot of people face is that when they get tested for celiac disease, it's a very limited test. It's not comprehensive, and that's the problem. Why? Because they only test for the alpha-gliadin and trans-glutaminase 2 in the gut, and that's it. So why is that a problem? Because the worst problem for your brain health, which is testosterone production, is this one here, trans-glutaminase 6. So when it comes to brain health, coming from that book, Why My Brain Isn't Working, we want to be aware of more recent discoveries of trans-glutaminase 6, which is found throughout the central nervous system. Gluten can trigger immunity and reactivity to trans-glutaminase 6, leading to autoimmune destruction of brain and nervous tissue. So you can have carpal tunnel syndrome, your brain doesn't work properly, you can have lesions, Parkinson's disease. And this one here, scientists went and did a study, and 1/3 of the people in this study didn't have symptoms to the gut, so which is the classic celiac disease. But the other 2/3, they had trans-glutaminase 6 and it attacked their brain. And from that research paper, an MRI image of patients with gluten ataxia. So ataxia is destroying your brain tissue, showing a rapid onset of cerebral atrophy over 15 months because they weren't diagnosed using the comprehensive gluten sensitivity. So scientists are calling this silent gluten sensitivity. So it's a pretty nasty situation. And the other big problem with wheat is that it's got lectins in it too. It's called wheat germ. So it's the lectin component of gluten. Now, why is lectins a problem? Well, on screen there, when you've got myelination on the central nervous system, it makes the nerves work faster. And it's very similar, like you've got an electrical cord that's got that plastic around it, even though plastic's toxic, and it insulates the electricity so it doesn't fray and spark and short out. But what happens with lectins is they attack the myelination, so it damages the myelin sheath. But what's insidious is that these lectins can inhibit nerve growth factor needed to remyelinate and restore function. And another big problem is that these lectins can cause heart disease. So you can see how it can be a problem. The only thing that you can do is get your genetics done or do a comprehensive panel to see if you are sensitive to these plant insecticides. Now, for me, I am. I'm basically a carnivore and I have a little bit of veg. So as you can see, it's a minefield out there. And if you've got, any problems with food sensitivities, your energy is going to be down, your testosterone is going to be down, and you will struggle. And if you've got a relatively poor gut health like Jesse has here, even if you've got obesity genes, you can't absorb the nutrients from food to get fat. But it comes at a cost because you're not absorbing the nutrients to keep testosterone pumping. Because we need these nutrients to keep all these pathways turning 24/7. Testosterone pathway, detox pathway, energy pathway, all those pathways. So as you can see, it's a bit of a minefield out there for a lot of people. And you could be like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be as bad as me or Jesse. But what you've got to start to consider is that maybe, just maybe, I've got a sensitivity to these plant insecticides, and they can be absolutely everywhere. And the best thing for you to do to figure that out is to grab this book right here, Why My Brain Isn't Working. So it will unpack all of that. So gluten sensitivity, you can pause this if you like, can cause all of these problems here. Restless leg, cognitive impairment, hearing loss. So it's an absolute mess. Now, the other thing that I wanted to share with you is the next video, we're going to go into the new cutting edge science. Now, as you can see on screen there, it's messy. Let me unpack it and I'll walk you through it. So if you eat the wrong fats, it can decrease testicular size. So as you can see where I've just clicked on, testicular size is coming down. That's what this study has now shown. But if you eat the right fats, you can increase testicular size. So the larger the testicles, the more testosterone your body is capable of making. So we're going to have a look at all of the foods that are toxic and what to do to ensure that your body's got everything that it needs to thrive at a deep hormonal level, but also, increase testicular size so you can get your energy back, you can get your testosterone back, and you can pack on the muscle and stay relatively lean without counting calories. Because you know what? Life is too short to be estrogen dominant and to struggle as a man. And once you get your energy back, it's just an amazing feeling to understand what you've been missing out on. And for a long time, as the first video in this series explored, Dr. Ken Berry spoke to that. We just don't know what we're missing out on. And the worst part is it's doing damage now. So we will explore in the next video all of these toxic foods. So they're pretty toxic. And I'll also show you what I'm eating and what I classify as A and B grade foods. All right. Because what we have to understand is we've got 5 hormonal systems, and the fats that we eat are so important, and we've got to get this right because they power up our sex hormones, they power up a whole bunch of things, and if we put the wrong building materials into our body, it just makes it really hard for us to take off and thrive. So if you got any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you like these videos, just share it and like it. That's all I'm asking for here. I want to help men feel like I feel. And I want to get you to a place where you're not counting calories like me. And I'm a 51-year-old man, but we've got to start considering that we might have food sensitivities. We've got to start considering that maybe there's new research out there that we don't know about. And if you want to rip off body fat, it's pretty simple. You mobilize it, you transport it, you get rid of the inhibitors, and you oxidize it. It really is that simple. So in future videos, we'll go over that. And I'm eventually going to get to a place where I'll show you that testosterone has a formula. And I like to think of it as you've got 2. You've got the signature of quitting, and you got the signature of effort and winning. So it doesn't matter what happens to you. You're just like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to succeed. Even if shit's going wrong, you'll just push forward. You can be stressed out. For a lot of people, they just crash down, but you can just keep moving forward. That's the place that I'm at, and that's the place that I want to help you get to. It's not a cakewalk. It takes time, but you can do it. We've been denied as men for too long. Testosterone has plummeted over 2-fold since the 1940s for a 51-year-old man my age, and you can get it back if you haven't left it too late, as Dr. Ken Berry talked about in the very first video in this series. So if you got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video where I'll reveal to you what I consider as A and B grade foods are, and what to start considering doing to get your energy and your testosterone back for life.